Mark had always liked living alone. His small habitat on the edge of the frontier colony was quiet, surrounded by the rocky plains of Zipheron 4. The sky above was a strange mix of orange and violet, with two suns setting in the distance. For most people, it might have felt lonely, but Mark loved it. He liked having the freedom to do what he wanted without worrying about anyone else. That evening, Mark decided to take a shower. After a long day repairing the colony's communication dishes, he felt grimy and tired. The water hissed and steamed as it hit his skin, and for a few minutes he let himself relax. The peace didn't last long. There was a sudden knock on the door, or at least Mark thought it was a knock. It was more of a thump, like someone had banged on the reinforced metal. Mark froze. "Who?" he muttered, quickly wrapping a towel around his waist. Before he could finish, the door slid open with a mechanical hiss. Standing in the doorway was the last person he expected. Or more accurately, the last being. She was an alien girl, but not the scary kind that humans usually imagined. She was tall, slender, and graceful, with shimmering blue skin that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light of the habitat. Her large, luminous eyes were curious and bright. Her head was slightly larger than a human's, and a faint pattern of glowing lines ran along her arms and legs. Most shocking of all, she didn't hesitate at all. She simply walked in, looking around with wide eyes. Mark froze, feeling his face burn. Excuse me. You can't just..." But the alien girl didn't respond in words. She didn't even seem to understand that humans needed privacy. Instead, she reached out, pointing at the shower and then at Mark, tilting her head in a way that clearly meant, "What is this?" Mark's mind raced. He had read about alien visitors in colony reports, but nothing prepared him for an actual alien barging into his shower. He held up his hands. "Wait, It's private. You can't know, seriously." The alien girl blinked. Then she tilted her head again, a soft hum escaping her throat. It sounded musical, like wind through crystals. She took a step closer, peering at the water cascading over Mark's skin. "Okay, Mark tried to reason. "Look, I can show you other things. I have a habitat, food, tools. But this is not the place." Still, she didn't leave. Her eyes darted to every corner of the small bathroom. Fascinated, she touched the metal sink, then the mirror, and finally the shower nozzle. Her fingers glowed faintly when she touched the water, and she laughed, a sound that was both high and melodic. Mark felt both amused and exasperated. "You really don't understand, do you?" he muttered. "Humans like privacy." The alien girl cocked her head and made a sound that seemed almost like questioning. She didn't speak any human language yet, but she clearly wanted to understand. Mark sighed. He realized he had two choices: yell at her until she left, or try to communicate. He chose the second. He reached for a dry towel and wrapped it tightly around himself. "Okay," he said. "I'll show you some other things. Follow me." The alien girl's eyes brightened, and she nodded eagerly. She stepped back from the shower, her glowing fingers brushing against the doorframe. She clearly wanted to keep exploring, and Mark was just grateful she had stopped staring at him. Mark led her into the small living area of the habitat. It was cramped but functional. A small kitchen, a workstation, and a chair that doubled as a storage unit. He tried to explain, using hand gestures and simple words, what each thing was. "This," he said, pointing to the food replicator, "is where I make food. This is where I sleep. And this," he waved toward a small screen, "is my communication device. It talks to the colony." The alien girl looked at each object carefully. She reached out, touching the replicator, then mimicking Mark's actions. She pressed a few buttons, causing a small plate to pop out. Her face lit up with delight when she realized it was food. She made the same soft humming sound and held the plate to Mark. Mark laughed, a little embarrassed. Thanks, I guess, but you don't have to feed me. Humans eat on their own." The alien girl tilted her head again, then tried to use her glowing hands to imitate Mark's eating. It was clumsy but adorable. Mark couldn't help smiling. He realized she wasn't being rude or disrespectful. She was just curious and eager to learn. After a while, Mark sat down on the chair, exhausted. "Okay, look," he said. "You can stay, but please don't touch the shower again." "I mean it," the alien girl hummed, then sat on the floor cross-legged. She watched him carefully, blinking slowly. She seemed to understand the idea of respect, even if she didn't fully grasp human boundaries yet. Mark relaxed slightly. Maybe this wouldn't be as bad as he thought, but the real trouble had only just begun. As Mark tried to explain more about human life, the alien girl began pointing at his clothes, then to herself. She made a series of curious sounds, clearly asking questions he couldn't answer. "You want to wear these?" Mark asked, holding up a shirt. She nodded eagerly. Mark realized she had no concept of human clothing. Well, you can try it, I guess, but it might be weird." She took the shirt, holding it like a puzzle. Mark couldn't help but laugh. She had no hands like humans. Her fingers were long and glowing, not built for zippers or buttons. Still, she tried, and after a few failed attempts, she simply wrapped it around herself, looking very proud of her effort. Mark shook his head in disbelief. "Okay, that's actually not bad. But don't go outside like that." The alien girl looked at him seriously, then nodded. Even without fully understanding human rules, she seemed eager to learn and obey when she realized it mattered. As the evening went on, Mark began to notice something remarkable. Despite her odd appearance and her sudden intrusion, the alien girl had a warm, curious nature. She wasn't malicious or dangerous. She was just incredibly intelligent and interested in the world. Mark found himself talking to her like he would a friend, or maybe like a teacher. He explained simple things about Earth customs, about why humans bathe, why privacy mattered, and why clothes were important. She listened intently, making soft humming sounds and nodding when she understood. By the time the suns had fully set, the alien girl had already explored most of the habitat. She had touched, tested, and examined everything. Mark realized he could teach her, but he would need patience. A lot of patience. Finally, he sat back, rubbing his eyes. "All right. Tomorrow we start proper lessons," he said, more to himself than to her. The alien girl tilted her head, blinked at him, and made a sound that could almost be considered laughter. Mark couldn't help but smile. "You really are something else," he said. "And, please try not to barge into showers again." The alien girl hummed in agreement, or at least that was the impression Mark got. She sat quietly, watching him, her glowing fingers resting on her knees. For the first time in a long while, Mark didn't feel lonely. He had a visitor, an alien, a very unusual one, but maybe this was the start of something incredible. He just hoped the next time she visited, it would be somewhere other than the bathroom. And in the quiet of the Zifferon 4 night, with the 2 suns gone and the stars twinkling above, Mark realized one thing: life in the colony was about to get a lot more interesting. The morning light of Zifferon 4 spilled through the windows of Mark's small habitat. The alien girl, who Mark had started thinking of as Lyra for convenience even though she hadn't given him a name, was already awake. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her glowing fingers tracing patterns in the air. Mark rubbed his eyes and yawned. "Morning," he said. Breakfast first, then we start lessons." Lyra tilted her head, blinking her luminous eyes at him. She didn't speak any human words yet. Instead, she made soft hums and clicks, her version of curiosity expressed in sounds that Mark didn't understand. Mark sighed. Right, the language barrier. He knew communication was the key. Without it, living with Lyra or teaching her about humans would be nearly impossible. But he also knew it couldn't be boring. He needed to make it simple, visual, and fun. He pulled out a small whiteboard and marker from his workstation. "Okay," he said. "Let's start with some words. This is a chair." He drew a simple sketch of a chair. Lyra leaned forward, her glowing fingers brushing the board. She hummed a high note, clearly trying to mimic him. "Good. Now's table," Mark said, drawing a table. Lyra's eyes sparkled and she tapped the drawing, making a clicking sound. Mark nodded. "Yes, that's close enough. You'll get it." The first hour was slow. Lyra mimicked every gesture, every sound. She even tried copying the way Mark held the marker, which resulted in a few scribbles. But she was persistent, and Mark admired her effort. After a while, Mark decided it was time to teach her something practical. "Okay, let's try something you will actually use, clothes." He held up a simple shirt. "This is a shirt. You wear it on your body, not on your head, not on your feet." Lyra tilted her head, humming, then reached out to take the shirt. She examined it carefully, turning it over in her glowing hands. Mark showed her how to put it on step by step. She tried to follow, but her long fingers and unique body shape made it tricky. Almost, Mark encouraged. "Not like that." Here, watch. He slowly demonstrated. Finally, she wrapped the shirt around herself, somehow managing to look stylish in her alien way. Mark couldn't help but laugh. Okay, you win. You look good, but don't go outside like that. After clothes, Mark decided to teach her about eating. He grabbed some nutrient packs from the kitchen. The second morning with Lyra began in the most unexpected way. Mark woke up to the sound of clattering in the kitchen. At first he thought it was just the wind rattling the outer walls of the habitat. But when he stepped into the living area, he found Lyra crouched in front of the food replicator. She was humming to herself, her glowing fingers pressing random buttons. A steaming tray of something unrecognizable slid out of the machine. Lyra clapped her long hands together in delight, then offered the tray to Mark as if she had just prepared a 5-star breakfast. Mark blinked. Wow, I don't even know what that is. The tray smelled like a mix of sweet fruit and burned metal. It didn't look edible, but Lyra's proud expression stopped him from rejecting it outright. He took a cautious bite. The taste was odd, a little sweet, a little sour, and very rubbery. Lyra leaned forward, watching eagerly for his reaction. Mark forced a smile. Delicious, he lied. Lyra hummed happily, repeating the sound she had learned for food. Food, she said, her strange voice stretching the word. Mark laughed. Close enough. That moment made him realize something important. If he wanted to teach her about humans, he also had to learn about her. It couldn't be one-sided. They needed a real exchange. After breakfast, Mark decided to show her some daily routines. He pointed to the sink. Humans wash their hands here. He turned on the water, scrubbing his hands, then drying them with a towel. Lyra copied him immediately, placing her glowing fingers under the stream. The water glistened against her skin, and for a moment her whole body shimmered faintly brighter. She hummed in delight as if the sensation was new. Then instead of using the towel, she shook her hands rapidly, spraying water everywhere. Hey! Mark shielded himself from the droplets. That's not how it works. But Lyra laughed, a high melodic sound, and tried again, this time drying with the towel. Mark couldn't help laughing too. She was clumsy, but she was learning fast. Next, Mark decided to show her cooking. He didn't have much in the way of ingredients, but the replicator could make base components. He gathered a few packs and explained step by step how to prepare a simple stew. This, he said, holding up the pot, is for cooking. You heat food inside it. Careful, it gets hot. Lyra nodded eagerly, watching every movement. When it was her turn, she poured ingredients with such concentration that she barely blinked. She hummed softly, a sound Mark was beginning to recognize as her version of focus. When the stew began to bubble, she leaned too close, and the steam fogged her luminous eyes. She jumped back in surprise, making a sharp clicking noise. Mark chuckled and handed her a spoon. Here, he said. Taste. She dipped the spoon, lifted it to her glowing mouth, and made a series of rapid hums. Mark grinned. That means you like it, right? Lyra tapped the spoon on the pot and said, Good. Her pronunciation was strange but clear enough. Mark was impressed. See, you're learning words faster than I expected. Later in the day, Mark thought it was time to explain human hygiene. He walked toward the bathroom, pointing to the shower. This, he said firmly, is a shower. Humans use it to clean themselves alone, privacy. He stressed the word privacy, repeating it slowly. Lyra tilted her head, repeating See? Mark nodded. Yes, privacy. Very important. He made a gesture of crossing his arms and turning away to demonstrate the concept. Lyra watched carefully, then mimicked his gesture. She made a soft hum, as if filing the idea away. Mark wasn't sure she completely understood, but at least she was trying. Just to test, he turned on the shower again. Lyra leaned forward eagerly, fascinated by the water, but she didn't step in this time. Instead, she pointed and said, Water, human clean. See? Mark's jaw dropped. Yes, exactly. She was learning faster than he could keep up with. In the afternoon, Mark decided to show her something different. Human games. He pulled out a deck of cards from a drawer. Okay, this is a game. We play for fun. Lyra tilted her head, her eyes glowing with curiosity. Mark explained the rules of a simple matching game. At first, Lyra struggled, flipping cards at random, but soon she started recognizing patterns. She even made a triumphant hum each time she matched a pair. Mark laughed, shaking his head. You're a quick learner, you know that? Lyra responded by mimicking his laughter. It was strange to hear his own chuckle echoed back in her melodic voice, but it made the room feel warmer. As the day went on, Mark began to notice that Lyra wasn't just copying him. She was teaching him too, though in small ways. When they sat by the window, she traced symbols on the glass with her glowing fingers. The symbols shimmered faintly, lingering for a few seconds before fading. Mark realized they were part of her written language. She pointed at the fading symbols, then at herself, humming softly. "That's your name?" Mark guessed. Lyra nodded. She repeated the hum, and this time it sounded like a word, maybe her actual name. Mark tried to say it, stumbling over the sounds. Lyra laughed and gently corrected him, repeating the hum until he got closer to the right sound. It was awkward, but it was progress. They weren't just teacher and student anymore. They were trading knowledge. By evening, the habitat looked like a classroom. The whiteboard was filled with sketches. The tablet had lists of paired words and sounds, and the floor was scattered with cards from their game. Mark leaned back in his chair, exhausted but satisfied. "You know," he said, "you're not just learning about humans. You're teaching me too. I didn't expect that." Lyra hummed softly, her luminous eyes fixed on him. Then she pointed at her chest and said, "Lyra?" Mark blinked. "Wait, did you just—" She tapped her chest again. "Lyra," she repeated. Mark smiled. "So that's your name, Lyra," she hummed happily, nodding. Then she pointed at him. "Mark?" he laughed. "Yes, I'm Mark. Looks like we finally introduced ourselves properly." The night settled over Zifferon 4, the twin suns replaced by a sky full of unfamiliar stars. Mark and Lyra sat quietly by the window, watching the alien constellations. For the first time since she barged into his shower, Mark felt like he wasn't just dealing with a curious stranger. He was building a connection with someone from a completely different world. He glanced at her glowing profile in the dim light. "You know," he said softly, "this is probably the strangest friendship in the galaxy." Lyra tilted her head, then smiled, at least the alien version of a smile, and hummed a sound that almost felt like agreement. And in that quiet moment, Mark realized something important. This wasn't just about teaching her words or showing her human customs. This was about understanding each other's worlds step by step. Tomorrow there would be more lessons, more misunderstandings, and probably more chaos. But for now, Mark felt at peace. The human and the alien had started a true cultural exchange, and nothing in the galaxy could have prepared him for how rewarding it felt. The station lights dimmed into night mode. Long shadows stretched across the walls, and the hum of the ventilation filled the silence. John sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened. He never imagined that an alien girl would walk into his shower, and now she was here, still on the station, still curious about him. Her name was Lyra. She had introduced herself that morning, standing awkwardly in the corridor, her long silver hair glowing faintly under the lights. She looked nervous when she said her name, like she wasn't sure if humans would accept it. John had smiled and repeated it back slowly. "Lyra." She had smiled for the first time then. The problem was the station wasn't designed for guests. Supplies were limited, and Commander Hayes was already watching John closely. Still, John didn't want Lyra to feel unwelcome. He brought her food packets, explained how things worked, and even showed her where the observation deck was. That night, John walked with her to the wide viewing window. Stars glittered outside like spilled diamonds, and far below, a small green planet spun slowly. Lyra pressed her hands to the glass, her eyes wide with wonder. "It is beautiful," she whispered. John chuckled. "You've probably seen 100 star systems. Why does this one amaze you so much?" She tilted her head. "Because I am seeing it. With you." Her words caught him off guard. He didn't know how to answer, so he just nodded, pretending to focus on the stars. Lyra's voice was soft, but there was a weight to it, as if she carried loneliness inside her. For the next few days, they spent more time together. John taught her how to use human tools, and she taught him a few alien words from her language. When she laughed, it sounded like a song, light and clear. Other crew members began to notice, too. Some whispered that John was getting too close to her. Others warned him that aliens couldn't be trusted. One evening, as John was repairing a loose panel near the docking bay, Lyra crouched beside him, handing him tools. Her movements were graceful but clumsy at the same time, like she hadn't worked with machines before. "You are patient," she said, watching his hands. John smirked. Patience is part of being a mechanic. If I lose it, the whole system falls apart. She studied him for a moment, then asked, "Why did you not send me away? Others? They would not keep me here." He paused, tightening a bolt before answering. "Because you're not a threat. And because you deserve kindness. Everyone does." Liara lowered her gaze, almost shy. "No one ever said that to me before." Before John could reply, a voice called out sharply behind them. "John, step away from her." It was Commander Hayes. His arms were... The alarms blared relentlessly as John and Liara ran toward the command deck. The crew scrambled, some panicking, others trying to organize defenses. The massive alien warship hovered just outside the station's shields, its dark metal surface glinting in the twin suns' fading light. Liara's luminous eyes flickered as she analyzed the ship. Her fingers traced the air, glowing faintly as if calculating something beyond John's understanding. "They are strong," she said quickly, "but predictable. They always strike in patterns. If we use the station systems correctly, we can trap them." John glanced at her, skeptical but desperate. "And how exactly do you want me to help?" She tapped the side of his helmet gently. "With your knowledge, you understand machines. I understand their weaknesses. Together we can protect everyone." John nodded, realizing that this was no longer about learning human words or customs. This was about survival. The command deck was chaos. Crew members shouted coordinates and status updates, while lights flickered with the stress of incoming fire. John and Liara moved quickly, Liara pointing at systems, showing him which consoles to override. "Shields, divert power to the upper grid," she commanded. John quickly followed her instructions, flipping switches and tapping commands. The alien warship fired a beam that struck the station's lower hull, sending sparks and smoke into the air. "Not bad," John muttered. "Your plan's working. So far." Liara's glow intensified and she hummed softly, a sound that seemed almost like focus itself. "We must act fast. They will adapt if we hesitate." John noticed something he hadn't expected. Liara wasn't just helping, she was teaching the crew to think differently, to act differently. Her alien instincts gave them an edge. Outside, the warship's smaller drones began to approach the station, attacking in swarms. Normally, the station's automated defense could handle a few of them at a time, but this many drones were dangerous. Targeting systems are overwhelmed, one of the crew shouted. Liara tapped a panel beside John's console. "Redirect manual targeting. Trust your instincts. Humans think differently, they can predict what we cannot." John followed her instructions, moving the cursor manually. He adjusted the energy beams to intersect with the drones' paths. One by one, the drones exploded in controlled bursts, sparks flying into space. The crew watched amazed as John and Liara coordinated seamlessly. "Not bad for a human-alien team," one officer muttered, shaking his head. The alien warship wasn't finished. It fired a larger weapon aimed at the station's core. The blast hit shields first, causing alarms to blare louder than before. John could feel the vibration through the floor. "We can't hold this long," one engineer yelled. Liara grabbed his shoulder, glowing fingers pressing lightly. "Yes, we can. But we must combine our knowledge. You must guide the station. I must predict their next strike. Together we are stronger than they believe." John took a deep breath. "All right. Let's do this." He and Liara began to move in rhythm, her glowing hands pointing, his fingers operating consoles. They diverted power, rerouted energy grids, and adjusted shields just moments before the next blast. Each successful maneuver made the crew more confident, and soon the panic in the command deck was replaced with focus and determination. Minutes passed like hours. The station's lights flickered with damage, and the hum of energy from the shields filled the room. Outside, the warship continued its attack, but it seemed frustrated, as if it couldn't predict what was happening inside the station. Liara turned to John. "Their systems are synchronized. If we disrupt their control link, the warship will lose coordination." John frowned. "Control link? You mean the central console on their ship?" She nodded. "Yes. You must access the targeting override, then I will guide you. But timing is critical. One mistake and they will destroy us." John swallowed hard. "Okay. Let's try." They moved to the station's primary targeting console. Liara's hands glowed brighter than ever as she analyzed the alien ship's pattern. John carefully followed her instructions, adjusting beam frequencies and aligning energy pulses. Sparks flew from the console and one of the crew members shouted warnings, but John ignored it, trusting Liara completely. The alien warship fired again. The energy beam struck the station's shield with a deafening roar. John's hands flew over the controls, guided by Liara's glowing fingers pointing in precise directions. The shield flickered, threatening to fail, but with a final adjustment, the beam's energy was diverted safely into space. Liara hummed a sharp, bright note. "Now fire the sequence!" John activated the override. Energy pulses shot toward the alien warship, interfering with its systems. Lights blinked across the enemy vessel, weapons misfiring, drones spinning out of control. The warship faltered, unable to adapt to the human-alien strategy. Outside, the crew cheered as the alien drones were disabled one by one. John felt a rush of relief. For the first time in his life, he realized how humans, working with others, even aliens, could achieve the impossible. The warship finally disengaged, retreating into the blackness of space. The station was battered but intact. Smoke and sparks filled some corridors, but no lives were lost. Liara collapsed onto the floor, exhausted but smiling faintly. "We succeeded," John knelt beside her. "Yeah, we did. You were incredible. I didn't think we could do it." She shook her head slowly. "You were incredible too. Humans, you adapt. You can think quickly. Your instincts are strong." John laughed softly. "And here I thought you barged into my shower for no reason." Liara tilted her head and made a soft humming laugh. "Perhaps I was meant to find you, perhaps this was necessary." John smiled, feeling a strange warmth. Despite the danger, the chaos, and the fear, he realized that their friendship and trust had saved the station. The next morning, the station administrator arrived. He inspected the damage, then turned to John and Liara. His expression was unreadable at first, but then he nodded slowly. "You two saved this station," he said. "I don't know how, but it worked, humans and aliens. Together." Liara bowed slightly. "It is natural when we respect each other." John smiled, feeling proud. "I'd say it's also a little bit of luck and a lot of stubbornness." The administrator gave a small smile. "Well, whatever it was, it worked. You're both commended. And I hope this is just the beginning." As the day went on, the crew repaired the station while John and Liara worked together, laughing and joking about the previous night's chaos. The bond they had formed through trust, patience, and quick thinking was stronger than ever. John realized something profound. Humanity had a unique strength, the ability to adapt, to think creatively, to work with the unknown and turn it into an advantage. Liara had shown him another perspective, and together, they had created a powerful team. By evening, as they sat on the observation deck again, John looked at Liara. "You know, you didn't just teach me how to fight an alien warship. You taught me to trust someone completely, even if they're different." Liara hummed softly, her eyes glowing faintly. "And you taught me humans can be patient, strong, and kind." John smiled. "Guess we're learning from each other." Outside, the stars of Zifferon 4 shone bright and endless, a reminder that the universe was full of challenges and full of opportunities for humans to shine. John looked at Liara and felt a sense of hope he hadn't felt in years. Humanity had survived wars, hardships, and isolation, but now, with allies like Liara, they could face the galaxy itself. He reached out and she placed her glowing hand over his. Two different beings from two different worlds had changed each other forever, and nothing, not the stars, not the dangers, not even the vast emptiness of space, could take that bond away. The station was quiet now. The red warning lights had dimmed, and the hum of machinery returned to its normal rhythm. Outside, the alien warship had vanished into the black void of space, leaving only scattered debris behind. John walked slowly down the corridor, taking in the damage and the exhaustion on the crew's faces. Liara floated beside him, her silver hair glowing softly in the dim light. She had been quiet since the battle, her luminous eyes reflecting the stars beyond the station's observation windows. "You handled that very well," John said gently. "I didn't think we would survive at first." She turned to him, humming softly. "You handled it well too. Humans are strong, adaptable, courageous. I see now why your species thrives." John smiled. "Thanks. You know, I think we make a pretty good team." Liara's glowing fingers brushed against his arm. "Team, yes. Strong together. The station administrator arrived shortly after, inspecting the repairs. He spoke to the crew, acknowledging their efforts and the unusual teamwork that had saved the station. When he reached John and Liara, he stopped, studying them carefully. "You two," he said, voice serious, "are an example of what can be achieved when humans and allies, alien or otherwise, work together. This station owes its survival to both of you." Liara bowed slightly. "It is natural when we respect each other," John chuckled. "I'd say a little luck and a lot of stubbornness helped too." The administrator smiled faintly. "Perhaps. But the galaxy will notice your success here. Consider yourselves pioneers." As the day went on, repairs continued, and the station slowly returned to normal. Crew members began to accept Liara as one of them, no longer just a mysterious alien visitor. Some even sought her advice on handling complex systems, impressed by the way she thought differently almost.